Welcome along to the Laura and Becky show. So we were radio presenters. We had our own breakfast radio show, but we got sacked. So what did we do? We decided to fly off to Mallorca for the weekend with no money, get a little bit tiddly, and the idea for this podcast was born.
Also, we were completely feral. I think you need to add that into your intro because we're being honest, guys.
In fact, we were the most feral
shower.
we have ever been on the trip. That is where the feralness started.
I would say it was disgusting. I would
It
go
was.
that far. We were rank,
We didn't shower for 3 days.
but happy.
I was so happy. We didn't go out in the evenings and we didn't shower.
You need to add that into the intro. We got sacked. We were feral. We were rank.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We looked like we were homeless on that holiday.
Yeah, it was great.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Greasy hair.
Yeah, disgusting.
I had tan on. I put tan on before I went away. I didn't want the tan to fade. So I was like, I'm just not going to shower.
I mean, at least I got in a pool. That's what I'm just going to say.
Yeah.
And the sea. I got in the sea. You, madam,
I didn't get any
wet.
either. No,
That's-
I wasn't
that-
having my tan come off. No, I was so nice and brown. I wasn't having that go to waste.
But you stank.
We both
I was
stank,
brown.
mate. We both stank.
Anyway, we're now sponsored by East Midlands Airport, Redbrik Estate Agents and the Casa Hotel Group.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for believing in our feral little asses.
We can now afford shower gel.
I have got two very funny messages
Okay, go.
to read. So this is from my friend Beeves, who is an avid... that's not a real name, by the way. Her name's Emily. Emily Beavers. Beavers is
Right.
her surname. I'm not going to go into her surname and laugh because she gets really offended.
And let's not do that.
But her name is Emily Beavers.
She's had it all her life, bless her.
All her life. But I call her Beeves. So she is in Madrid at the moment with her boyfriend.
Lovely.
And her boyfriend's working, so she's been sunbathing, listening to our podcast
Lovely.
while he's at work. Like it. Anyway, got a message from her. And I'm going to try and do it in her accent, right? Because she's
Okay.
from Barnsley.
Right.
And she got a bit of a voice like this. She put, right. She's gonna kill me. I feel like I've torn her apart in this podcast. I love you, Beeves. Right. I'm listening to your podcast in Madrid and the ads came on first, and because I'm on the Wi-Fi, they're all in Spanish. And I thought, why are Laura and Becky speaking in Spanish? I was like, I did not know that Becky was fluent in Spanish. I mean, she even said as well, I've been to Spain with you and you did not speak a word of Spanish. So bless her heart.
Well, hola, Beeves.
Hola, señorita.
Beeves. ¿Cómo estás?
De nada.
Muy bien.
Buenos nachos.
Buenos
dias.
nachos?
That's good night.
No, it's not nachos.
Well, buenos
Noches.
noches.
Not
and
nachos.
buenos
That's
dias.
food. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
I should be able to speak fluent Spanish.
Le
shocking.
cuento, por favor.
Sí.
There we
Bueno.
There we go.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, the accent was
talking
pretty
about.
good there as well.
Hang on, wait. So she was in Spain and the adverts were in Spanish. What
Yeah,
the hell?
Because she was on the Wi-Fi there. They were in Spanish. How cool is that?
What do you mean she was on the Wi-Fi? What if you're not on the Wi-Fi? What if you're on your 4G?
I don't know. I don't know if it
Hang on, wait.
automatically goes to Spanish.
It knows you're in Spain and it gives
Yeah.
you Spanish adverts.
Mhm. Yeah.
God, technology, eh?
And then she realised, obviously, she's like, oh no, it's just because I'm in Spain.
I'd love to be able to speak fluent Spanish.
I mean, mate, I'm thinking of learning.
Yeah.
In fact, today, right, it's in my diary.
You need to learn because if you say buenos nachos to anyone, they're going to be like,
Buenos nachos.
that's good nachos.
They're going to bring me a portion of nachos.
Good nachos. Good nachos. They'll be like, well, yeah, she's saying good nachos.
She like the nachos. She's obsessed though with the nachos. I do like nachos, actually. Love them.
I could have a conversation when I lived in Tenerife.
Yeah.
Did you know I lived in Tenerife? 3 years
No.
I was there for, and I could speak good Spanish. Now I've just forgotten it all.
Well, today, when I picked Lily up from school, because I want her to learn. In fact, I said to Lil, because I want to get her doing a class. Right? She hasn't
Yeah.
done any classes for us. Like, what do you want to do? She went, I want to learn Spanish
Yeah.
so I can understand my favourite YouTubers who are Spanish.
Right.
I was like, all right, fine. She's invested. We'll go with it. So we're calling at a little place when I pick her up from school today that do Spanish lessons. So, mate,
Nice.
it is in my
You're in your
diary.
diary.
I'm going to be fluent by next week.
Hasta luego. That's great. I love that.
What's that mean?
Hasta luego.
Yeah.
See you later.
I'll
Like,
see you
hasta
later.
luego.
De nada. That's no problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean,
Mañana, tomorrow. Oh, guys.
there we go.
We're good.
Buenos nachos.
I've got one more message to do
Oh,
as
sorry,
well.
go
I know,
on.
I totally forgot.
Go on.
Right. So this is from Kelly, who's a regular listener. She's put, just listened to your Grumpy Pilot episode on the pod whilst cooking tea and got to the bit where Laura asked you if you'd be up for a high-speed road sweeper. I almost chopped my finger off, howling with laughter. Nothing against road sweepers, but... perhaps your pod should come with a health warning, as this is the second time I've had a kitchen accident whilst cooking/chopping and laughing at your shenanigans.
Oh God, Kelly, sorry. Don't chop your finger off, love.
Yeah, she did actually. Last time I saw her, she said that she'd had an accident whilst listening. So
funny story about a road sweeper, right? You know, my road, my avenue, it's called an avenue. I like that. It is actually just a road, but it's quite a wide road, yeah? Anyway, I always say like opposite, the opposite side of our road is posher than our side, right? And they're really miserable. And the road sweep, I kid you not, came down our road and I thought, oh, bloody hell, a road sweep down our road. Only did the other side and drove off.
The posh side.
I thought, you bastard.
Do you reckon one of them had phoned the council and be like, we need this sweeping, it's filthy?
Yeah, I'll tell you what they do as well. You know when bin men come around and pick up do the bins?
Yeah.
And then have you seen the white van that comes and like hoses out your bin?
Yes.
Nobody ever does that side.
But do they pay for that?
Probably.
Yeah, it's paid. You don't get
That's
that
how
for
you
free.
know if you're posh. You pay for a man to come and clean your outdoor bin.
My
Who
bin,
can be arsed?
My bin needs clearing out.
It's got
disgusting.
maggots in the bottom, I think.
Hey, speaking of bins as well.
Go on.
We need to tell the story of yesterday. So obviously at the moment we sound like a couple of don't we? We are collecting empty rosé bottles for our what?
I'm going to beep that out.
Okay.
Remind me to beep that out. But anyway, Jesus. You can't say that. No.
Okay. So we are collecting empty rosé bottles for our first birthday party, which is Friday, by the way.
We are giddy for this now.
Oh my God.
It's Wednesday, so we're on the slope down to our party. There's so many people coming. Considering we run events for a living, we have no idea who's coming.
We've forgotten who's on the guest list.
We've literally now lost count.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
The more the merrier. What was I saying? Rosé bottles. I've completely lost my train of thought.
Bins, rosé bottles.
Rosé bottles. So yesterday we had a meeting, didn't we, at a hotel and a bar, and they went rummaging through their recycling bin to get us their empty rosé bottles.
I know. Bless them. And
that is dedication.
Well, they're both Charlottes, aren't they? They looked lovely. They're very well made up, weren't they? And
Beautiful.
we're like, can you go through your bin and get us some? And they did.
They were straight there, weren't they?
They were straight.
No
Do you know
issues.
what I think, actually? I'm going to say this on the pod. Because they rifled through a bin to get us some rosé bowls, I'm going to give them back the rosé bowls.
Hang on, what?
Not really. No, I'm going to give them the rosé bottles with the flowers in.
Nice. Yeah, because this is what they're being used for, guys. We're not just searching for rosé bottles for no reason. They're going to be part of a flower arrangement at our first birthday party, okay?
So when we left, I had about 6 empty rosé bottles in my handbag. I kid you not. When I got home later on, I just walked in and was like, hiya. Everyone's like, hello. I put my bag down in the hallway, went into the kitchen. Rosie, 14-year-old, walked in, looked and she went, Mum. And I was like, what? And she went, that's a bit excessive. But then just grabbed some crisps and went upstairs. Like, she didn't bat an eyelid.
Yeah,
she
it's almost like she
thought
thinks it's the norm.
it's normal for me to have 6 empty rosé bottles. She was just like, yeah, ordinary day for my mum.
Normal day at the office. Mate, I've got them all in the boot of my car at the moment, but I haven't secured them properly.
Mate.
So everywhere I drive, they're like clunk, clunk, clunk.
Now, I've got mine in a bag. When I was putting them in, they do smell a little bit. Do you think we should have rinsed them out?
Yeah, my boot's going to stink. It's going to have rosé all over it, isn't it?
Listen, thank you to the Maynard because they supplied the empty rosé bottles.
Thank you for rifling through the bins. You've saved our bacon. And they're coming on Friday as well.
I know. This is great.
It is great.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got a guest on today, haven't we?
Yes, she is arriving. So after this, we're going to introduce her. I have not drank rosé.
Are you sure?
We're going to introduce her. And boy, oh boy, has she got a story.
Oh, when you sent this story to me, I was shocked.
Yeah, this is going to be a great story. And she's on next. So it's Wednesday and we love Wednesdays because we always try and get a guest on. And I have been so excited about the guest we have today.
So giddy. We sort of touched on this earlier on, but you made me aware of this story and you sent me I think it was the newspaper article with this story on, and I read it and I was completely shocked.
Yeah. So we'd like to welcome Roxy to our podcast. Hello, Roxy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh my God, you're more than welcome. Thanks for coming in. So now I will say kind of the backstory. I've kind of met you through my sister. Yeah. That's all we need to say. So first of all, Roxy, just explain what you do. You do many things, but just give us a brief overview of you.
Okay, so I'm primarily a mental health therapist. I've got a private practice in Clown that I've had for about 8 years now. And along the journey of that, I started helping women set up their own businesses. So now I'm a business coach as well. I do lots of business training.
Lots of things.
Lots of things.
And you're very busy.
I'm very, very busy.
Yeah, that's interesting in itself, isn't it? Because we've talked about this, and especially after, I think, lockdown and the pandemic, and a lot of therapists have said that they've been so busy after that. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. My business exploded in lockdown, which was really interesting because I was already kind of trying to move a bit away from therapy because doing it all the time is just way too much. So I'd already tried to move away a bit, but lockdown, it was crazy. So I was trying to homeschool 2 little children. My husband was still working a corporate job and I had therapy clients coming out of my ears.
Do you need therapy now because you're doing so much therapy? Are you looking for a therapist?
I think every therapist should have a therapist.
I was going to say that's actually
not a healthy
true.
thing not to.
Yeah, I was going to say, do therapists have therapists? Because the job you do, I mean, you listen to people all day and probably not the happiest of people either.
Yeah.
So you do, it's like hairdressers having a good hairdresser.
Yeah.
Absolutely is.
I've never even thought of this before about therapists having a therapist.
Wow.
Everyone should have a therapist anyway. But
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back, shall we? And let's talk about you, and because you have, an incredible story, a very inspiring story. So can we go back to kind of what happened to you when you were younger?
Okay, this is fascinating to me because it's just not a story to me.
Yeah.
I tell this story and so many people are like really in awe of it.
Yeah.
But I forget about it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Oh, we were
It's just not part of
fascinated.
my radar or life
Which is
at all.
probably a really good thing, isn't it?
I think that's
to be
why,
fair.
that's part of why it's a story.
Do you mind talking about it? That's probably a question we should have asked before you came on this podcast. Do you mind talking about this?
No, and I think my version is always quite abridged because I'm just so accepting of it.
Is it like a different it's like you're talking about someone else? Or is it...
I don't even know. It's just like that happened and that's nothing to do with who I am now.
Yes.
Except it's everything to do with who I
Yeah,
am now.
yeah.
It's probably
Interesting.
completely what created me as this.
Yes.
So when I was 2, I got scalded. So I was 70% burned. So it's quite a long-winded story. But basically, we lived in an old council house and they had the coal fires where the coal fires heated the water. So the water was screaming hot. I don't know if you remember those. I vividly remember the heat we get from normal boilers now is not the same.
Yes.
So, we lived in a old council house. My mum had me, I was 2.5, and my little sister was 6 months old. My dad was at work in the pit. And my mum started running a bath and she switched both taps on, but only water came out of the hot tap. My sister started crying. She went out of the bathroom and didn't click the door shut properly. And that's all it was. I was 2.5 and I potted in, no idea why. Apparently I told them once I was reaching for the bubbles, and I leaned the weighing scales up against the side of the bath, climbed up, and the weighing scales, as far as we know, tipped away and I fell in. But so I fell in fully clothed. I think it's clear that I fell in on my right side and then stood up, and my mum heard the most horrific screams and came running in, realised that I'd fallen in the bath, but didn't really realise the extent of the burn, so she started trying to pull my clothes off. So as she was pulling my socks off, all my skin started coming away with my socks, and at that point she knew it was horrific. But the cold water had been turned off by the council, so there was no cold water to run me under at all.
Oh, God.
So, and bear in mind, my mum's 22 at this point. She's a kid herself. I didn't have children until I was 29, so my mum's 22 with 2 children. I can't even imagine. So she phoned the ambulance came. And apparently my nan told me once I was stood up in the back of the ambulance, so she didn't think I could be that bad. The ambulance took me to Chesterfield Royal Hospital. They refused to take me because they said I'd die. So they literally sent the ambulance away. And the ambulance took me to Sheffield Northern General because they had a specialist burns unit. And upon arriving there, they told my parents I'd die. There was absolutely no chance that I would live. So I was in intensive care for 6 months, I think. My parents were told that this is it. And then it became clear that it wasn't. And I obviously fought back, but then they were told things along the way. They were told I'd have to have my hands and feet amputated. I'd never walk. I'd never be able to go in the sun. They had no idea if I could have children. And I had skin grafts. So I stayed in hospital for, I think I came home briefly that Christmas. It happened in September. I came home briefly at Christmas and then went back in. So you
were in hospital for all of that time up until Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then for months afterwards. And then I grew up in hospitals. It's one of my biggest memories is I grew up in hospitals. So as soon as I was like alive and okay, they moved me over to the Children's Hospital. So I had all my skin grafts there growing up. But I had skin grafts till I was 22. So I was still having those.
So when you talk about your memories, do you you were so little, you don't remember anything?
No.
Which is probably a good thing.
It's and I think that is actually the whole reason that I am how I am now is because for lots of people when they have an accident like this, they probably have a before life and an afterlife, but I never had a before life that I knew of. So my whole life has been like this, which I think is the luckiest thing because that's what's made it so easy to accept it all.
So your first memories are of being in hospital then, of this whole thing?
Yeah, completely. And it's really hard because as an adult, you think you've got memories, but you don't know if they're memories people have told you and you've created along the way. But there are certain memories that I absolutely know about. Like there's certain nurses that I could picture their faces now. And again, I was really lucky in the Children's Hospital. I was spoilt to death because I was there so often. They'd wheel the old TV into my special room. I had my own room. And I was like spoiled. I was like the celebrity in the little hospital. So as a kid, that's like a dream. I could have anything I wanted.
Yeah.
God. So what is the extent of the scarring?
So I was 70% scalded. So it's everything except my face and left arm, basically.
God.
So even now, like the fascination, and because I forget about it constantly, I'll go to Tesco in shorts in the summer and people stop and stare at me. And I forget, and I genuinely think, what are they looking at? And I'm like worried that my bum's hanging out or, something normal.
Yeah.
And then I remember, and it's that fascination that we have with people who are different that still makes us look at people. So yeah, I'm so grateful my face didn't get burned because that might have changed everything completely. But again, I have the opportunity to cover up if I want, but that was one of the biggest things my mum ever did for me. My family, but my mum specifically, she refused to cover me up at any point. So I remember at secondary school begging to go in trousers and she refused. On my first day at secondary school, she refused for me to go in trousers. And I literally cried all morning. And it was the best thing that could happen to me.
Yeah.
Because everyone just got, that was just you.
Yeah, immediately.
And I guess you were just used to showing it off as well then, weren't you? Yeah. How did your parents cope and react after what happened? Because it's an awful thing for a parent to go through that. Like I can't even imagine if that happened to my daughter, what I'd do.
I can't imagine. So I've got 2 boys now, and I just remember when they got to the age that I was just looking at them thinking, you are so perfect. Like, what do you do? So at the time, you just cope because you have to. You go into that adrenaline mode. We've all done that when our kids have. I remember my youngest son getting his hand stuck in a shape sorter, a wooden shape sorter, that there's no physical way I could have broken this open. And the calm that comes over you while you have to fix the problem. So I think for a lot of it, shock and just that we have to get through this took over. But then my mum wouldn't talk about it for years and years. My dad was always great growing up. I don't see my dad now. My dad was brilliant growing up. But my mum would not talk about it. And actually, so I've only started talking about it in public after my sister insisted that it was time I did because people would be interested. Because again, I don't recognise that as a thing. And then I went to my mum and sort of asked if we could talk about this now because it's important to help other people with it.
Does she mind you talking about it?
No. And she put a couple of quotes together for some articles that I've done. But she don't want anything to do with it. She doesn't ever want to be filmed. There's no way my mum would talk about it in real life properly.
And how was that conversation with her? Because I guess it's the first time you and her had properly talked about it.
I think it's the first time we talked about the fact she doesn't talk about it. And we were in Sainsbury's car park, and I just remember thinking, I've got to do it now. Because I go shopping with Mum every Tuesday. It's one of our things. And I remember being in Sainsbury's car park, and I'd had this offer to like do this thing for Fabulous magazine for the Sun. And I remember thinking, I've got to ask my mum. I've got to ask my mum.
Yeah.
And she was brilliant. Again, it was a very short conversation, closed down. She's like, I'll write something. I don't want to talk about it. And then she wrote me this gorgeous piece.
It must have been so traumatic for her. And even now,
imagine.
she must remember it so
well.
clearly. Has she ever had any... No, I don't even know
I
whether I was
didn't know
allowed
what
to
you were gonna
ask
say.
that
No.
or not. I was like scared to
No.
ask it. So she's never had any therapy
No.
or counselling for it or anything.
Definitely wasn't offered then. Whereas now, if something like this happened now, you would be offered it immediately. It was 1987.
Yeah.
Like therapy didn't exist as a thing. And then my mum's very different to me. My mum and my sister are really the same. They are very happy to close things off and not deal with stuff, whereas I'm the opposite. I like to talk about everything.
Yeah.
My poor husband. But yeah, so no, she never has, and no, she never would. She's far more happy just leave it there.
Yeah.
And yet she's so proud of me. It's such a mix.
So how... so that happened. Obviously, you said you went to like secondary school and you didn't cover up or anything like that. So how do you think that happening to you has shaped who... is there a correlation between what you do now and what happened to you?
I don't know about what I do because I came into that much later. Although, so all my whole life growing up, I wanted to be a nurse. They were clearly my role models. So I think that was very much shaped from the fact I lived in hospital. And I didn't become a nurse. I went into corporate jobs. I did a bit of travelling. And then I met my husband in our corporate job. And just one day I said, I want to go back to nursing. I want to drop all of this corporate stuff, which I detest, and go back to nursing. So I started a nursing degree in September 2013, I think. And then I started in September. I found out I was pregnant in December. My whole life shifted because, again, we didn't know if I could have children. We didn't want children at that point. I cried for a week, the poor child. Really. So we didn't know if we could have children. So, like, the whole world shifted. And Tom's mum's a mental health therapist up in York. And I remember her saying once that I should definitely look at it. And when I fell pregnant, I recognised that I wanted to be able to help people, but there was no way I was doing 13-hour shifts while I've got a new baby. So I retrained while I was pregnant and moved into mental health, and I set up my practice when my little boy was 3 months old.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think that caring and wanting to help people has definitely been shaped by my scars, but I don't think it directly led me to mental health. That was my little baby.
Wow, God, what a story.
What a story. It's one of those stories that kind of, it sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? It's like your worst nightmare.
And again, as a parent, I can see it so much.
Yeah.
My niece is 13 now. And I remember when she was 2 and my mum said something about this was my age, and I could just look at her and see a little me. And that, I don't know how you cope with that. I have no idea how my mum coped with that. And my wider family. So my sister was 6 months old and literally went to live with my grandparents for 6 months. So my sister missed that bonding with my parents because my mum lived at the hospital. But my sister's, like, she works with me now. We couldn't be closer, yeah. And I think it helped a lot. I was from a little village, so I was from a really small village. So everybody knew everyone. So I was very safe growing up as a kid because all my classmates knew me. There were probably less than 20 of us in our whole year at school. So they all knew me. I've got loads of cards that they used to make me when I came back from each operation. And then the transition from primary school to secondary school was huge because suddenly I'm from this really sheltered, protected little community to this big wide world. And my mum making me wear a skirt on my first day, it's one of my favourite little stories because I hated her so much. I was so upset by it. And I went to my secondary school, and I remember sitting in the class and one of the girls came up to me, said, "You're that one who plays netball for Renishaw, aren't you?" And I'd sort of completely forgotten that people would know me anyway because I wouldn't recognise any of them on their netball team, but because of my scars, I'm recognisable. So I instantly was known at secondary school already. Yeah. And almost I wouldn't have even been noticed if I'd gone in trousers. And that shift of how we remember and recognise people and the impact that it has, because I loved sports, I was great at sports, I played all the sports. So I'd obviously met half of these people before and they remembered, and that's the really interesting part.
It must have been actually really hard for your mum, that decision, even though she made you do it. I'm trying to think how I would feel, because you'd want to do that, but you would think, oh God, no, how are they going to be?
Yeah.
Are they going to get bullied? What's going to happen? Are they going to be upset? And that's not what you want, is it?
And that's something I lecture about now in therapy and in coaching all the time, is this idea of building resilience. We don't do it enough in our children now. And my mum forcing me to do things like that, even though it hurt her so much, like they're those little turning points for our kids to help them grow up to be able to deal with the stuff life chucks at you.
That is like true love as well, because she would have been so uncomfortable making that decision, but she was like, I need to do this for you. So that is just unbelievable.
I think she said she sat at the living room window basically all day waiting for me to come home.
Yeah. Oh,
God, I bet she had cried, didn't she, as
I'm
well?
sure she cried all the time.
yeah.
Oh,
God, isn't she amazing? I don't think I could do it. I think I'd be like, no, wrap you up.
Cover up. Yeah,
I think that's what you want to do.
My dad told me a story once. So I was probably about 6, 7. And I was playing on the floor in the waiting room of the hospital. And this woman came over to my dad and she said something like, I'm so proud of you. And my dad sort of said, what's up? I don't understand. And it was the middle of summer. Dad said it was sweltering, and this woman had a polo neck on, and she pulled her polo neck down. She had this big scar on her neck, but she covered it up all of the time. And so I was just playing there in my little shorts or skirt or whatever.
I don't know why I'm getting upset.
I know, I can feel it as well. It's really emotional.
It's really emotional. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
It's just this idea that people recognise.
I think this is the thought of your mum sending you to school.
I
literally couldn't imagine.
I can't imagine going through that as a parent.
No, at all. And then that's the one thing you remember being the best thing she ever did.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It really
sorry,
is.
so the lady, sorry.
No, that was it. That was the end of the story.
Sorry.
It's just this idea that she'd gone her whole life covering herself up, and how easily that could have been me.
Yeah.
If my parents hadn't treated me in the way they did, I could easily be ashamed or embarrassed or whatever of my scars.
Yeah.
And because they didn't, I now don't recognise them as things, and I forget all about them until someone asks me to tell the story.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you are kind of shopping in, I don't know, Sainsbury's, and you do notice someone staring, if someone came up to you and said, excuse me, like, what happened? Are you kind of like, oh, thanks for asking, let me tell you?
Nobody asks.
No, but yes, that's
fascinating thing. And again, it's us as humans, we're really scared to do this.
Yeah.
But we don't recognise how normal staring at people is. So again, in Tesco the other day, there was a guy packing his shopping, and he'd got an amputated arm, and he'd got his shopping bag hooked on his arm, and he was packing it with his other hand, and I could not stop staring at him.
Yeah.
And all my thoughts are like, gosh, that's incredible. But for him, if he's got his own like insecurities around that, imagine how he feels. But I couldn't stop looking at him.
Yeah.
But this idea that we're not supposed to look, or we're not supposed to ask people about things, is so typically British.
Yeah.
And it's so polite, but actually the staring is way worse.
Yeah.
Well, as human beings, we're interested in other people, aren't we? In differences and things that have happened. And we love a story, don't we, as well? So it's in us, isn't it, to sort of look and wonder about things.
And we can't not do that, but ask. Always ask.
Yeah,
especially
always
if your little kid's interested. That's one of the things. I'll hear little kids saying something and the mums are shushing them.
Yeah.
I don't shush them.
Yeah,
let them be curious.
Yeah.
Let them know it's all right to ask.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
God, it's incredible. What therapy do you do now? What kind of therapy?
Lots of kinds of therapy. Genuinely true. So my favourite, I like to work with people with anxiety and depression. Lots of it is body confidence. Lots of it is resilience that they've not learned along the way. So I'm a psychotherapist, so I do talking therapy basically. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I don't use it that much now because I don't enjoy doing it as much as not whether it works or not. I get bored doing it.
That is brilliant.
I'm bored now.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you're quiet and asleep in the chair, and I'm talking to myself. Yeah,
Get your laptop out, do some work.
it's genuinely how it feels a little bit.
I love that. That is
really
the quote
funny.
of the pod. That is it. Just get bored doing it, to be honest with you. Just bores me.
You're just asleep. What am I doing now?
Yes. Well, I was just going to say, if people want to find you, but maybe they won't after that. But no, if people do want to find you, if they are perhaps looking for a therapist or they're just interested in your story after listening today, where can people find you on social media?
So you can just Google me for a start. Roxy Rhodes comes up with all sorts, but roxyroadstherapy.co.uk is my therapy site. I'm all over social, so you will find me very, very easily.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my God, that was a journey. That wasn't it?
Also, as well, obviously, this podcast today is a normal podcast, but we are going to do something very exciting next. We're going to record another podcast with you, and this is for something that we've got planned in a couple of weeks. So we're going to kind of talk to you more after this about, a bit of help for people that are listening that might have anxiety and depression. So that will be revealed kind of next week, won't it?
But we're going to tell you how you can listen. We'll give you all the details on all of that, but we're very excited to delve a bit deeper into how you can help people.
Yes.
Including us.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Can we get some therapy
all
too,
the
please?
help.
So you just had a free session, yeah?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
How fascinating.
Yeah, that was incredible. Thanks, Roxy.
Thank you.